Hello, citizens and UEMC miners. Rockseeker here. I'm back to continue on these few videos on how to set up your dual Trustmaster T16000m joysticks and throttle using the target software. So for those who haven't seen my previous two videos, the first one of them was how to basically install the driver and making sure that your joystick works fine, and the other one was how to install basically the target software and basically explaining how DirectX works, and basically getting to here how after we mapped basically the three joystick that's how they're going to be mapped into that big virtual single combined joystick. And as we discussed, there's only 8 degrees of freedom, 8 axes that you can have under DirectX, so you have to put some of them to none, keep the default one for your right joystick, remap the left joystick axis to X rotation, Y rotation, and Z, which are different from the right one. And the last 2 axes remaining, you map the throttle to the throttle basically. And in my case, I chose, because I don't have rudders, I decided to map the slider into that, what I call the slider in front here, that small part. So, and that will be, if I show you again, basically here, what I'm looking to do is set up my joysticks and throttle like this. So everything on the right remain as default as possible, with pitch, roll, and yaw, and the buttons there. And on the left and the throttle, basically just move over the few features, or map the few features I want to use on the left joystick, in this case mostly strafing, and the throttle here. And basically one thing I wanted is to use that slide in front and completely reprogram that axis as not being an axis, but actually becoming like 2 buttons, where the up portion becomes an afterburner and the bottom portion become a space brake. So when I press going down, it actually acts as space brake, and going up as afterburner. So going back to configuration, so now we're at this step. We go and if you remember, we set up okay, here I explained that for my roll, I prefer to damper the roll a bit, not as fast. And for the strafing, as most people recommend, leave a bit of dead zone in the middle. Some people say up to 30%, but in my case I prefer to just keep 5%, just enough so that if I go to the left a bit off, it's still just to the left. But if I want to go in diagonal, as soon as I go a bit beyond 5% in between, then it's going to be diagonal. Then you go next, and here that's where you can program your different input. So you have all 4 of them, but in my case I only have 3. But as I explained, the here the throttle is combined with the rudder. I don't have the rudder, and there's nothing mapped to them, but basically it's all part of the same configuration. So let's start with, okay, the right joystick, the one that doesn't say right, basically the default one is the right one. This one we don't want to change anything, so it stays as is, because we want everything default in Star Citizen to work the same. What you want to do though is, for the left one, you want to make sure that okay, we already remapped the 3 axes, if you remember, in the previous window. Here what remains to do is remap the 16 button, because these joysticks have 16 button, but obviously if you don't want whether you press the right or the left to act as right button. But let's say we don't map anything. I'll show you how it behaves. So you finish this, you say yes, save, save. So I've got my configuration here. So you say run my configuration, and now the configuration is running. So I'll bring the here, and you see now I don't see 3 devices, but I actually see only one, which is the Trustmaster combine, and it looks okay. If you look in the properties, I'll bring it here. Okay, now it's one big virtual joystick, and we have all of the axis of rotation, X, the 8 of them in DirectX, X, Y, and Z rotation, which is on my right joystick. So moving to X, moving Y, up and down, and rotation on my right joystick is mapped to here, to Z rotation. If I go on my left joystick, because if you remember, I remapped it, so now the Y is there and the X is Z rotation, if I twist the joystick, it becomes the Z axis. So there's no conflict. I can twist both, and you see there's no conflict. I can use both X's and both Y, and again, there's no problem. If I tried the slides on both joystick, it won't do anything because I put them to none. And if I go on my throttle, here we go, lower down, up the throttle, and the slider, slide to the right, slide to the left. Now the button. If I press the button on my joystick to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's what I have. And if I press on the left, again, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now that's a problem, because if I press the button 1 on the right joystick and on the left joystick, I get the same reaction. And as you see, there's 16 buttons here. What I want to do is remap all of those 16 buttons from the left joystick onto 17 to 32. So now my joystick will be completely reconfigured so that it won't interfere one with the other. So basically, right joystick has the 3 axis and button 1 to 16, and the left joystick, again, 3 different axes and button 17 to 32. So let's go back here, here, stop this, we go back here, and basically, okay, here, edit, that's our configuration, we go next, we have our configuration, and here. So we pick the left controller, and what you're going to do is here, you're going to say, okay, for this one, you have button 1 all the way to button 16 here. So you start with button 1. I call it DirectX 1 to DirectX 17. And what I do here in the command, I make this appear, and I can go and say, you know what, button 1 here will become 17 instead. Save that. You can leave it as default. In my case, I make sure it's 0 millisecond. Basically, that's the delay when you press the button. It reacts immediately, and you don't want to leave it by default. It's at pulse. I don't know why, but what you want to do is put it on hold. Basically, if you press, it's active. If you release, it releases it, and that's it. Nothing more. You do add event, and here you go. You can even test this. Let's run the configuration in a test. And we go, again, you can click here in the joystick control panel. We have here, we pick this, properties. Oops, it appears different screen. I bring it here. And now I pressed on the right joystick, I press button 1. That's good. And on my left joystick, I press button 1, and now it's 17. So what you're going to do is basically, okay, let's close this, stop the profile, go back here. Now you have to go again and redo this. You take button 2, again call it dx2 to dx, now we're at 18. You go here, keyboard, 2 becomes 18, save the command, put it as old, 0 millisecond, add event. Now you got button 2, I did this. Now you do this for all of them. The only thing that I do a bit different is you will notice that button 3 on the left joystick is not mirrored like everything else. Basically, if you were to look at button 5 to at the bottom, you see that's, okay, let's go back to the right joystick. If I go here, I say button 5. Button 5 is basically on the inside of how your joysticks are set up. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And if you go on the left joystick, it's on the inside again, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But if you look at the button 3, it's to your left. And if you look on the left joystick, button 3, again, it's on the left. So I want to fix that. That's the only 2 buttons that are not mirrored. So what I do here, I say dx3, oops, x3 to dx. If I was to continue in the same order, it would be 19, but in this case, I go 20. And basically the command here, 3 would be 19, but I go instead to 20, save, and old 0, add event, it's there, and then I go to the 4, I'm gonna dx4 to dx19, because as I said, I cross those 2, I pick 19 here, save key, and then old, delay 0, add event. And after that, you just continue like straightforward for all of the rest of them. It takes a little while to do, but it's that's what you have to do. So dx5 to, oops, I'll move the mouse here. dx to dx, oops, dx21, and map here, 5 goes to 21, save, and again change it to old, and 0 second, add event. Okay, so let's say we're done with all of them. We can run that configuration. To test it, we don't have to save and exit, we can just test it there. So we go back to here, properties, hold on, the window appears on the other one, I'll bring it here, and now we checked button 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the other joystick, 1 is 17, inside 2 is 18, the inside, which I called 3, is 19, and 4 is 20, and then if we go and click 5, 5 was here, oops, no, that was 5 is on the inside, 5, if I click the other one on the inside, oops, too many things here, it's 21. Here we go. So you see it works. So that's it. So stop the profile, come back. So you keep doing that for all of them. Now, how about, well, okay, next gonna be to configure the throttle. So we'll do that in the next video. I realize that I'm already like running long. I'm at 15 minutes. That's way too long. So I'm gonna stop here and basically say finish to save this configuration. Save, yes. And on this, I'm gonna say see you soon. See you actually in a couple days, and I'll show you how to configure, basically how to remap the slide on the throttle so that it becomes your afterburner and your space brake. Till then, take care. See you in the verse.